And thank you for being a little quieter than the crowd up in Edmonton was when we did this. You might find my throat's a little scratchy. We've been at 2 days worth of caucus meetings building our team. And so I'm going to get through this speech without having my voice crack. But if I need to go over and have some water, you will know exactly why that is. But I am so grateful for all of you being here this evening. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. And welcome to the 2025 UCP Calgary Leaders Dinner. Woo! Exactly. It is always so great to be back in Calgary at this incredible time of year. With the city buzzing with renewal of opportunity, you can experience as well all 4 seasons at the same time, sometimes before lunchtime. The energy in the city, of course, is truly something special. The city was built on energy. Yes, energy in the literal sense. Calgary, of course, has helped to power this province and this country through its leadership in oil and gas. And today is leading once again in clean technology and the energy systems of the future. But there's another kind of energy that makes this city great, the energy of the people, the grit of entrepreneurs, the boldness of risk takers, the determination of builders and dreamers who came here generation after generation, searching for opportunity and creating it for others. Calgary is more than a city. It is a gateway. It's a gateway to the West. It's a gateway to prosperity. It's a gateway to new beginnings for families who come to Canada from all around the world. And for me, Calgary will always be home. It's where I was born, it's where I was raised, it's where I was educated, and it is where I began my public life. Calgary gave me, a person who grew up in the community of Mount Pleasant, and then the community of Beddington Heights, where mom and dad still live, the opportunity to learn and grow and realize my potential. And tonight, looking around this room, I know Calgary is still brimming with the energy and opportunity that has defined it for generations. Truly. Tonight is a special night, one that marks some significant milestones for our party, as you may have heard. Exactly 2 years ago today, Albertans made their voices heard at the ballot box, electing our UCP government to a second term. Yes. And in doing so, Albertans made an important choice. They rejected the NDP Liberal coalition that has done so much harm to this province. And they voted for a party that would stand up to Ottawa and fix our healthcare system. They voted for a party that would protect their rights, their livelihoods, and their communities with an unwavering commitment. Indeed, Albertans voted for our United Conservative Party, and with nearly 2,000 tickets sold tonight, I am proud to say, I guess I'm not speaking out of school here. I think it's already been told that we have tonight the largest political leaders dinner in Alberta history, which is a true milestone for our party and our province. Good thing we helped build that new convention center. Now we've got a bigger place to move to next year. And this isn't just a crowd. It is a message that our conservative movement is strong and united and growing. But momentum like this doesn't happen by accident. Of course, it takes countless hours of hard work and dedication and planning by incredible staff and volunteers. So let me just take a moment to thank all of those of you who helped organize tonight's event. Among them, of course, I want to thank tonight's co-chairs for the dinner, Mike Thoreau and Rick Orman. Give them a round of applause. And of course, the incomparable UCP Executive Director, Dustin Van Voot, who just keeps blowing away our fundraising targets year after year. Thank you, Dustin. And the members of the board as well, who I think you were introduced to this evening. These folks are the lifeblood of the UCP. They are the ones who give their time and their energy and their passion to ensure that our party stays strong. So let me go on, because I've got several others that I want to give a round of applause to as well. I should mention, of course, You can advance a bit. I should mention that we have had 3 by-elections that are underway right now, 2 in Edmonton and of course 1 here in Calgary. And I know that our newest candidate is here tonight. You may know that Tara Sawyer is your UCP candidate for Olds Disbury Three Hills, yes? As the former chair of Alberta Grains from a prominent farm family, Tara will make a fantastic MLA, and she's going to be a strong voice for our province, for our values, and for the way of life that Albertans are so proud to have. Her riding isn't that far from the city, so of course, if you have some extra time on your hands, I'm quite sure that she and her campaign would greatly appreciate your support. So let's get out there and show Albertans just how strong our party is. And Resh Bardwash and Darby Crouch are our candidates in Edmonton, so you can help them out there as well. Give them a round of applause. But our conservative movement continues to grow across the province, and this success can't be attributed to any one person. Here in Calgary, we have an incredible team of UCP, MLAs, and ministers who are fighting every day for the city and for the businesses and families who call it home. This, of course, includes the remarkable Rebecca Schultz, UCP MLA for Calgary, Sean, Alberta's Minister of Environment and Protected Areas. Rebecca is a force to be reckoned with, and together, just a few weeks ago, we announced that Alberta is freezing the industrial carbon tax to ensure that our businesses remain competitive globally. I also personally think that she is one of the main reasons Stephen Guilbeault is no longer federal environment minister. Yeah. But between being a wife, a mother, and an MLA and a minister, I don't know how she finds time to do everything. Somehow she does. And she knocks it out of the park every single time. We also have the dynamic Dimitrios Nicolaides, the UCP MLA for Calgary Bow and Alberta's Minister of Education and Childcare. Of course, Dimitrios is a tireless advocate for students, parents, and academic excellence. And you may have heard it had been brought to Dimitrios' attention that books containing explicit sexual images and content were being found in some of the libraries at our K-12 schools. And some of that content includes sexual nudity, graphic depictions of sexual acts, self-harm, and drug use available to kids as young as kindergarten, if you can believe it. So I'm incredibly thankful that earlier this week, Dimitrios, he announced that our government will be creating consistent standards to ensure that books in our public libraries, in our schools, are age appropriate. And I do hope that you'll take the time to go online and fill out the survey so you can give him your feedback on that too. We also have the terrific Tanya Furr, who is a UCP MLA for Calgary Pagan and Alberta's Minister of Arts, Culture, and Status of Women. Tanya, oh my gosh, she's such a passionate advocate for Alberta's thriving arts community. And she's also a strong voice for women. Earlier this month, she released Alberta's 10-year strategy to end gender-based violence, which outlined our government's plan to support those who are victimized, as well as to make sure that we're holding those who commit crimes accountable. And we also have the reliable Rick McIver, who is a UCP MLA for Calgary Hayes and Alberta's newest speaker in the Legislative Assembly. Rick, of course, has been known to shake things up in the legislature from time to time, but now, of course, he's the one charged with keeping things in order. And I must say that it's so fitting that after such a long and dedicated time as a public servant, that Rick will one day have his grand speaker portrait hung in the halls of the legislature to be seen by all Albertans for generations to come. We also have the magnetic Mohammed Yassin, UCP MLA for Calgary North and Alberta's Associate Minister of Multiculturalism. As you know, Mohammed is a passionate advocate for Alberta newcomers. With his annual Immigrant Impact Awards, he showcases the incredible contributions newcomers have made to build and grow our province. We also have the magnificent Mike Ellis, UCP MLA for Calgary West, Alberta's Deputy Premier and Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Services. As a former Calgary police officer, Mike, of course, brings firsthand experience and leadership to tackling crime, social disorder in our communities. And he's probably watching his phone and device tonight because he's also our emergency management services. And you probably saw that we do have some evacuations going on in the province. So hopefully we won't have any more big problems this evening. We also have Mickey Amory, who is our Minister of Justice. Right now, of course, Mickey's spearheading changes that will give everyday Albertans a more powerful voice in our democracy, and he is leading our court challenges against the federal government. We got a lot of them. We're challenging everything from the federal firearms ban to the No More Pipelines law, the plastic ban, fertilizer regulations, and most recently, the net zero electricity regulations. Yes. We also have the meticulous Matt Jones, UCP MLA for Calgary Southeast and Alberta's new Minister of Hospital and Surgical Services. Now, with important hospital reforms underway, so we can add more surgeries and reduce wait times. This is, of course, a big job, but I can tell you, Matt knows what it's going to take to get the job done for Alberta patients and their families. We also have the resilient Rajan Sani, UCP MLA from Calgary Northwest, as well as Alberta's Minister of Indigenous Relations. Rajan's recent leadership in advanced education is now going to be used to help build strong partnerships, advance economic reconciliation, and support new opportunity for Indigenous peoples in their communities. I'm looking forward to having her on our negotiating team with Ottawa. We also have the masterful Miles McDougall, UCP MLA for Calgary Fish Creek and Alberta's new Minister of Advanced Education. And this is his first cabinet role of what I'm sure will be many. Miles is an economist and an entrepreneur, and he is committed to protecting our world-class institutions, to free speech, academic excellence across the province. We have the powerful Peter Singh, MLA for Calgary East. He has been recognized for his volunteer work with the Alberta Centennial Medal, and he continues to be a strong voice for diverse communities within our caucus and government. And last, but certainly not least, we have the electric Eric Bouchard, who is the UCP MLA for Calgary Lougheed and the champion for the voice of everyday people and businesses. So do give our entire Calgary UCP team a huge round of applause for their outstanding contributions to Calgary and Alberta. I think you were introduced to the rest of our caucus members, so along with them, these folks are working hard to ensure Alberta's best days are still ahead. So together, our team was able to pass 19 pieces of legislation during this spring session. We built on Alberta's recovery model by passing the Compassionate Intervention Act. This legislation, of course, creates an opportunity for families and guardians, healthcare professionals, police, peace officers, to take action when somebody's addiction or substance use has made them a danger to themselves or others. We can order them into treatment. And for families with loved ones who are suffering from addiction, compassionate intervention offers new hope. Hope that their loved ones can get the help that they need to break their addiction, reconnect with their families, and manage their life in recovery. Because there is no compassion in leaving people to suffer in the throes of addiction. And we will not sacrifice our communities or give up on people. Yeah. We also passed legislation to continue our healthcare refocusing, and we've announced a new activity-based funding model for healthcare to support greater efficiency, value for money, and accountability in healthcare. Under the existing model, facilities are given a lump sum of money, and there really are no incentives to increase surgeries and no accountability to meet the number of surgeries that facilities projected. So imagine this, even if a hospital promised to perform 300 surgeries, they may only deliver 100 with no accountability for the administration. But under our new patient-focused model, facilities will compete to deliver surgeries. Each facility will be paid based on the number of surgeries performed, and common surgeries will have clear fixed pricing. Yeah. So that, of course, means that there are built-in incentives to increase volume with high quality, cost predictability for taxpayers, and accountability for every single service provider. And that, of course, will equal lower surgical wait times, higher quality of care, and better health care for all Albertans. Let me tell you about another piece of legislation we passed. We passed a significant Elections Act changes, and this legislation will protect our democracy, ensure that we deliver fair and open elections, and increase Alberta's confidence on every vote cast. And some of these changes include banning the use of electronic vote tabulators, eliminating vouching at voting stations, requiring the unofficial vote to be completed within 12 hours, which seems to be reasonable. We should know who won before we go to bed at night, and ending the practice of vote anywhere by requiring voters to cast their ballot in their constituency and requesting a special ballot. You've also heard probably that it would increase access to direct democracy by updating the Recall Act to make it easier for Albertans to hold elected officials accountable, by lowering the signature threshold and extending the time frame to collect signatures. And it would improve the Citizen Initiative Act process by setting the threshold for all successful petitions at 10% of eligible voters who participated in the last general election. Now, some have raised some concerns over this legislation, and I think it's because they don't believe that people have a right to put forward contentious issues for a vote. I believe otherwise. I believe Albertans deserve to be able to put forward issues of importance to them, and if they receive the required number of signatures, then it should be able to be put to a vote of Albertans in a referendum. It's because I trust Albertans to make the right decision, and I hope that you do too. This spring, we also introduced and passed Budget 2025. With a rapidly growing population and increasing economic uncertainty, Budget 2025 strengthens public services, keeps Alberta's economy strong and competitive, and delivers much-needed tax relief amid a cost of living crisis. In 2023, of course, our government made a promise to cut personal income taxes for all working Albertans. And through Budget 2025, we not only kept that promise, but we also fast-tracked it from the plan that we laid out last year. So with this tax cut, individual Albertans will save up to $750, while two-income families will see savings of up to $1,500. And that means more money for you to spend on your priorities, whether it's paying bills, saving for a rainy day, going out on a ski trip, or taking your kids to a future Flames playoff game, right? Our UCP government is also making significant investments to support Calgary's growth and development. We are investing hundreds of millions of dollars for school projects across Alberta, including planning and design for 18 new schools in Calgary and the surrounding area. That will create 14,000 new student spaces. That's how fast we're growing. To support healthcare, we're funding numerous new projects here, including the development of a research and innovation center at the Alberta Children's Hospital, the planning and design for the Airdrie Regional Health Center, the Arthur J.E. Child Comprehensive Cancer Center, redevelopment of projects at the Peter Lougheed Center and the Rocky View General Hospital, and more. And we're also ensuring our most vulnerable can access the services they need by building a new 75-bed addiction recovery center and a new 150-bed compassionate intervention center right here in Calgary. And we're investing in Calgary's roads and transit networks, which are critical to keeping the city moving and the economy growing. We're supporting my personal favorite, upgrades to Deerfoot Trail. That's going to really improve my quality of life coming in, the Green Line and Blue Line transit extensions, and design for the Blue Line connector to the Calgary International Airport, which is long overdue and something that we should have done long ago. I'm very excited about that. And of course, to support Calgary's vibrant community life, we're also investing millions towards the Calgary River District Event Center, as well as the Glenbow Museum, Arts Common, and Contemporary Calgary. Now, I could go on, but here's the main point. Calgary is a city on the rise, and these investments demonstrate our commitment to supporting the people, businesses, and communities that fuel Calgary's success. Alberta is booming, but even with all that the momentum, we are facing obstacles, often artificial ones that are enacted by Ottawa. Now, I know that there is a lot of concern and, frankly, frustration in the room over the results of the most recent federal election. And why wouldn't Albertans be frustrated? We Albertans just want to be free. We want to be free to develop and export the incredible wealth of resources that we have for the benefit of our families and future generations. We want to be free. Yeah. We want to be free to pursue opportunities with the ideals of entrepreneurship and hard work and innovation that have become synonymous with the name of our province. Freedom to choose how best to provide healthcare, education, and other needed social services for our people, even if it's done differently than what Ottawa might want. But for the last 10 years, successive Liberal governments in Ottawa, supported by their New Democrat allies, have unleashed a tidal wave of laws, policies, and political attacks aimed directly at Alberta's free economy and, in effect, against the future and livelihoods of our people. They have blocked new pipelines, canceled multiple oil and gas projects, stacked an oil and gas production cap on top of a crippling industrial carbon tax, and banned the very tanker ships needed to carry those resources to new markets. They have imposed net zero mandates on our natural gas-based power grid, causing investment in reliable generation from natural gas to flee, thereby endangering the future stability of our power grid and risking future blackouts and spikes in electricity costs for Alberta families and businesses. They have interfered in provincial jurisdiction time and again, from taking over the regulation of plastics to mandating how we operate childcare, healthcare, dental care, to harassing law-abiding firearms owners, to dozens of other examples of unconstitutional interference. The onslaught of unconstitutional anti-energy and anti-resource development policies has scared away global investment to the tune of, we think, about $500 billion, driving those investments and jobs out of Alberta, robbing countless Albertans and other Canadians of their means of providing for their families. It has also cost us a decade of opportunities and tens of billions of dollars in lost royalties that could have been invested in the health, education, infrastructure, and social services of not just Albertans, but Canadians as well. As a result, Canada has fallen to dead last in economic growth among industrialized nations, and growth is slowing. Investment is fleeing. Debt is climbing. The world looks at us like we have lost our minds. We have some of the most abundant and accessible natural resources of any country in the world. But against the wishes of millions of Canadians, a select few eco-extremist ideologues in Ottawa have done everything in their power to keep that wealth in the ground. So let me say this as clearly as I can, with all due respect to Prime Minister Mark Carney and anyone else Ottawa might send our way, I cannot allow the status quo to continue. Yeah. Our government is committed to negotiating a new deal for Alberta, an Alberta Accord, if you will. First, Alberta requires guaranteed corridor and port access to tidewater off the Pacific, Arctic, and Atlantic coast for the international export of Alberta oil, gas, critical minerals, and other resources. Yeah. Second, the federal government must end all federal interference in the development of provincial resources by repealing the No New Pipelines Law, C-69, the oil tanker ban, the net zero electricity regs, the oil and gas emissions cap, the net zero vehicle mandate, and any federal law or regulation that purports to regulate industrial carbon emissions, plastics, commercial speech of energy companies, and so on. Third, the federal government must refrain from imposing export taxes or restrictions on the export of Alberta resources without the consent of the government of Alberta. And fourth, the federal government must provide Alberta the same per capita federal transfers and equalization as is received by the other three largest provinces, Quebec, Ontario, and British Columbia. So that's step one. We're also going to launch the Alberta Next panel to engage our best minds and all Albertans in shaping our province's path forward. And rest assured, no matter what the outcome, our UCP government will always defend our constitutional rights, our energy future, and the livelihoods of our people. Now, as most Albertans already know, I have repeatedly stated that I support a strong and sovereign Alberta within a united Canada, and I personally have such high hopes that there is a path forward for that with Ottawa. And I am going to do everything within my power to negotiate a fair deal for Alberta with the new Prime Minister. Yeah. That said, Albertans are looking for leadership, real leadership, the kind that builds, not blocks. Alberta is still the economic engine of the country, and we are ready to build. We are ready to build the critical infrastructure that will strengthen the country nationwide and support the jobs and programs and services Canadians rely on for generations to come. We are ready to fast-track investment, develop our natural resources responsibly, and deliver the energy, food, and fiber that the world is crying out for. But to do that, we need a partner in Ottawa, not an adversary. So, to Prime Minister Carney, I say this: it's go time. So enough with the foot dragging, enough with the mixed messages and the placating of eco-extremists in the federal cabinet, and enough with keeping the same failed Liberal policies of the last decade on life support. Albertans have heard this all before. We have been strung along by Liberal governments who love to talk about unity until it comes to treating Alberta like a real and equal partner. Now, those days are over. We are moving forward with confidence and clarity. We will develop our economy. We will exercise our constitutional rights. We will forge our future. I will be watching closely over the next few months, especially as we head into the Calgary Stampede, and I will be listening to Albertans as I travel across this province, because I don't answer to Ottawa, I answer to you. And my promise to you is this: I will lead with conviction, I will fight for fairness, and I will never, ever apologize for Alberta. This is our time. This is our time to lead, to build, and to show the rest of Canada what's possible when a province refuses to back down. Because one thing I know for certain, Albertans and Canadians and Calgarians in particular can do anything. And no matter what comes out of Ottawa, no matter how many roadblocks they put in our way, we will keep building. We will build the future Albertans deserve. We will build the future that Canada needs. And we will build it right here, right now, in an Alberta that is forever strong and free. All right, now for the next part of the program. Am I handing it over to you, Madam Schultz? Am I handing it over to Mike, or am I just, Well, let me start, because what we did in Edmonton, which was kind of fun, is I took a seat here, and it's almost like playing that game where I get asked a really hard question, and so I hold out a lifeline to get one of my ministers to come up and answer the hard ones, and I take all the easy ones. So we're going to do that again. So I think I've got a few folks in the audience who are going to help with doing the question asking. I think I've got Rebecca Schultz. Why don't you just wave your hand over there? I think I have got I've got Mike Ellis over here. I've got Rajan Sani over here. I thought I had a fourth one. Right here. Oh, and I've got Miles McDougall over there. So why don't we begin perhaps with Rebecca Schultz? Do we have a question from the audience? Or you can ask me one if nobody wants to take the first question.
I mean, I'm not tall, but I can see when you raise your hand.
All right. Who's the first? Okay, it's going to be John Williams.
Oh, here we go. We got John Williams. He's representing Calgary Mountain View. He's on the board there, and he'd like to ask you a question, Premier.
Premier, first off, you are doing more for this province than any other premier ever has. You move government at a pace that is unprecedented. Most premiers take on 4 or 5 projects. You've taken on about 30, and you've achieved great success. for the betterment of our province. And I'm very grateful for that, as is everybody in this room.
Now, John, I know you have a question to ask there, but let me just give some praise to my caucus and my cabinet colleagues, because the process I go through when I'm establishing a mandate letter is I have some ideas of what I want to do. They've got some ideas of what they want to do. We look at what the member passed policy is, and then we write a mandate letter. And I can tell you, we ended up with, I think, over 250 items by going through that process, and we're 95% done or started on those. So we're going to need to have a new throne speech in the fall. But I can tell you, when I talk about this being a team effort, it's because we've just got such an incredible team in the caucus. And thank you all for electing them and putting them there.
So I was thankful to see our past village idiot, Mr. Trudeau, depart politics. Sorry, I'm a little bit blunt, but we now have Mark Carney. And my opinion is now we have a guy that's just rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. Alberta has the ability to take control here. My question to you, Premier, is do we have the ability to set up our own Alberta Revenue Agency? Because I tell you what, if we own the money, we have the control. And you know what we've been taken advantage of for years? Alberta money that is made by all the people in this room and across this province, a lot of it should be spent in Alberta, and we've been screwed for years. I'd love to hear if we have the ability to create our own Alberta Revenue Agency and take back control.
John, thank you so much for the question. And I know it's been something that came out on the Fair Deal panel is, can we collect all of the provincial and federal taxes and just remit to Ottawa our share of what we owe for federal services? I mean, I think if we could do that, would we get some support for going down that approach? Yeah. And it is not such a crazy idea. That's exactly how municipalities operate within Alberta. They collect all the property taxes and then they remit to us the education portion of the property tax. I did float at a municipal meeting. I said, well, would you like to reverse that? Would you like us to collect all of the tax and then just give you your portion? And they kind of said, hell's no. So that told me something, that if the municipalities don't want to give up that power, then why did we allow for Ottawa to overtax us on every aspect of tax collection that they do, under support us on every single federal program, and take the difference and fund the rest of Canada? So I think you're right. We should never have given that up in the first place. Quebec wants to go to the kind of model that you're talking about. And my view is whatever Quebec gets, I want to. So if they manage to succeed in that, I promise you, we're going to be right behind them.
All right. I've got a question over here, Premier. You can introduce yourself.
Good evening, Madam Premier. Tom Kent, Calgary Elbow. As you probably know, today Janet Brown put out some new numbers, and it's 52% for us and 41% for the NDP. So,
no, 38.
Well, okay. It's only getting better by the hour. Anyway, the other thing they found, though, was that healthcare was probably going to be the #1 issue in the next election. No big secret. So I thought maybe this is a good opportunity with 2,000 of your nearest and dearest to start getting out a bit more of forget about the scandal and everything. What's really going on, as much as you can talk about it, and how you're chipping away at it.
As you know, politicians aren't supposed to pay attention to polls, but what I do find very interesting is that Janet Brown is one of the most accurate pollsters, and she doesn't normally release her results. So I think this was done as a special release for CBC. But when she first did it, we were at 46, and the new leader of the NDP was at 44. It was very tight when he first got in. And then the next poll had him at 40, and then this poll has him at 38. So I think that shows that whatever it is that they are trying to sell to the public's not buying it. Meanwhile, we're gaining ground, which I think is really important. It's a validation that you can do tough things and you can take tough positions, and people will be with you. And so I'm very pleased by that. And I feel like we got a mandate to make changes in healthcare. If you can imagine, when we came in, we basically had a $29 billion portion of our budget that we had no line of sight on. We basically cut a check to HS and said, okay, go run not only all your hospitals, but also contract out to your competitors at Covenant Health, and contract out to all the charter surgical facilities, and there's 50 of them, and contract out to EMS and run public health and choose our doctors, run mental health and addiction, run long-term care facilities. They were getting to a point where they were about to build social housing. They were taking over our entire government, and we had no line of sight onto how they were spending it. So I'll tell you what we've done with creating 4 different departments. It's not just a cosmetic change. It's creating a healthy tension so that we have different entities who are providing different services. So the first door that every patient goes through should not have to be an emergency door at a hospital. Because if that's what happens, then you're underinvesting in all of those other areas. We want to invest in primary and preventative health services. That's going to be Adriana LaGrange's job, focusing on that. Let's get everyone a family doctor or a nurse practitioner and a family I think they're calling it a medical home, so that if you have something wrong or you need a test or you need a prescription, that's where you can go. We have about 600,000 patients that are unattached, and we want to get that down to 0. So that's one of the first things. The second thing is mental health and addiction. I have such sympathy for our hardworking frontline nurses and doctors, because as we've developed a very severe homeless mental health and addiction crisis, if there's nowhere for those folks to go, they end up staying in acute care beds in hospital. And so a lot of our emergency room beds, a lot of our acute care beds are folks who shouldn't be there. They should be in recovery. They should be in mental health supportive facilities. That's why we're building 750 new beds to be able to do that. So that will allow for a different type of medical professional to treat that type of patient. The third big area is, we call them alternative levels of care. These are folks who go into the hospital maybe because they have an acute condition, and then they get stuck there. There isn't a mechanism, if they can't get back out to their private home, of finding a facility. AHS didn't have a line of sight on all of that. And one of the stories that our minister responsible for that, which is Jason Nixon, Minister of Assisted Living and Social Supports, he found that there was one individual who needed about 7 days worth of acute care treatment and has been in the hospital 1,343 days and counting. We have others who've been in hospital for hundreds of days just because we haven't found an efficient way to get them into the right kind of care facility. So that's why we needed to have that focus in a different area. And then Matt Jones, who's going to be taking over on looking at hospital and acute care services. His job is going to be to implement activity-based funding, because one of the things that we discovered as we started digging in is that the only place that was increasing the number of surgeries was our charter surgical facilities. We gave $3.5 billion more to AHS in the last 6 years, and they're performing fewer surgeries today than they were 6 years ago, with $3.5 billion more. Meanwhile, our charter surgical facilities went from 40,000 surgeries to 63,000 surgeries. And yeah, and anyone who's had the experience of going through them, it's remarkable. But you know what we realized is, if you give an entity a lump of money and say, go do stuff, they find ways to do less and less and less. If you tell a facility, hey, we're only going to pay you if you do a surgery, they do more and more and more and more. So we're going to apply that thinking across the whole system. We are there now. We've got the 4 different ministries stood up. I've got 4 incredible ministers who are leading the charge in each of them. We've just got Rick Wilson now over in mental health and addiction. And I can tell you, you're going to start seeing some major changes over the course of the next year. So thank you for your patience on it. We couldn't have gotten there without having done all of the restructuring that we did now, but I think it's going to make a huge difference now.
You're on.
Hello. I'm just curious if a feasibility study of any substantiation exists, and if not, whether this UCP government would be willing to fund one just to substantiate whether Alberta can sustain on its own, and put aside the emotion. I think we're at about a 50% in favor based on an emotion-driven response, but I could tell from the people I speak to that if we had a fact-based report that outlined our strategy, we'd be much more successful. And I'm just curious if that report exists and if whether or not you'd be willing to fund it.
Well, I think that there are private think tanks who are probably going to fund that kind of research. I know that there's several different groups that are asking those questions. I'm watching all of those. I do still think it's my job to make the case to Ottawa about why they're better off if they just allow us to create wealth and stop standing in our way. That's what I hear Albertans want to do, is that if they could just get Ottawa to allow us to build a pipeline, get our products to market, twin the rail line going to Port of Prince Rupert so we can export more food and we can export more forest product and we can export more of our goods. I just feel like that is going to be the solution. So I think that there will probably be different think tanks who do the kind of analysis that you're suggesting. But I think my marching orders is to try to make Canada work, and that's what I'm going to do.
Premier, over on this side, right behind you. Premier, over here, behind you, over here.
Hey, Minister Sani.
Mr. Matt Campbell has a question for you.
Thank you, Premier. Thank you for all your hard work. We know you've got the very best interests of Albertans. Thank you. My question is, we appear to be being stonewalled again by Ottawa. Mr. Carney has not stated once about how he's going to eliminate the barriers that were put in place towards Alberta the last 10 years. How long are you going to allow Ottawa to basically stall the questions? Because I can see it coming. They're stalling. They're stalling. We're into Stampede. We're into the summer. We'll be into the fall, and nothing will happen. So there's got to be a bottom line, and what's it going to be?
Sunday. I'm giving him until Sunday. And I'm only partly joking on that, because we do have these first ministers meetings and ministerial meetings. All of the ministers take part in those with their counterparts and with the federal minister. For most of the time that I've been in this job, the prime minister doesn't show up. But with this new prime minister, I'll give him credit for this. He has met with us many times, and he's only been the prime minister for a few short months. But he is coming to Alberta on Sunday to meet with probably some people in this room, some business leaders in the energy sector, to get an idea of what it is that Alberta wants. And I can tell you, they're going to mirror the same things that we want, because I've been talking with them a lot. And we'll go to Saskatoon for a first ministers meeting. And what I hope will come out of that will be a consensus about how we're going to start building. So I don't think we have to wait that long. I think we will know in the communique that comes out after a day and a half of meetings whether this government is serious about changing course, or whether we're just going to have to double down on the fights. You don't have to wait that long, just a couple more days.
All right, Premier.
All right.
Nope.
Back on the
Rebecca.
other side again here, Premier, we have Steve Chapman.
I guess I'm only the deputy premier. It's okay. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Hello, Premier. Steve Chapman, Calgary, Acadia. I've had the opportunity to be a Calgary police officer and recognize the vital service and need that we deliver to Albertans who are in imminent emergency. Alberta's done a good job in terms of saying every Albertan has the right to education, every Albertan has the right to medical attention. I don't feel that we're giving every Albertan the same access to policing as long as funding is being delivered by municipalities. Will the province take a look at perhaps taking over that funding model so that we can guarantee that every Albertan has access to police when they need it?
Well, this isn't where I'm going to call for a lifeline, Steve. So I think I've got Mike Ellis,
Now you're calling
our
upon me.
public
Hey?
safety
Oh, okay.
and emergency services minister, who probably has he probably has some really interesting information to share with you on that, because we're developing a couple of different things. We're supporting municipalities in being able to determine the police force that's right for them. We've got some great information we just got from Grand Prairie coming back from our caucus meeting. And then he's also acknowledging the incredible training our sheriffs already have and creating an opportunity for them to do policing so that they can also be dispatched to communities. So Mike, why don't you tell a little bit more about that and the specific ask that Steve had?
Yeah, no, thanks very much. And Steve, thanks very much for the question. Look, this is obviously a very complex issue. we have, of course, empowered our municipalities. Actually, we're empowering our municipalities to really, decide what is best for their future, right? So obviously there are municipal police forces, Calgary, Edmonton, Lethbridge, Medicine Hat, just to name a few. But what we found out, especially in rural Alberta, is that the costs are going up to almost unsustainable numbers. The cost increase are going up by over 50% with no better service, no more officers. And I can tell you that I have met with, for sure, well, not just RMA and AUMA, but certainly, well over 50, municipalities just in person, over 40 First Nations in person. And I can tell you that they're all looking for something different. So what we've done is we provided a $30,000 grant. It's not available anymore, but we had well over about 30, 35 municipalities that took us up on this to decide what's going to be best for their future and whatever that policing model is going to be. I can tell you that we've had a number of municipalities that have committed to us, actually, that they would like the sheriffs to be their police of jurisdiction. Coaldale being one of them, Hardisty being another, and that I'm going to give credit, of course, to Premier Smith in regards to that, because Hardisty, which is really the heartbeat of our oil and gas industry, and really it is extremely vulnerable at this time. So we will be putting a detachment in Hardisty to protect our critical energy industry right now.
Yeah. If I may add what we heard when we went to Grand Prairie, this is why I have some confidence that municipalities should continue to lead this. When they did the study based on the funds that we gave them, they found out that they could get the same or better service and save $8 million by going to their own municipal police force. Now, they've since told us not to use that number because instead of reducing the number of dollars that they spend to police, they're just going to add the number of officers. So right now they have a complement of 55, and it's mostly RCMP. They're just transitioning over. By the time they're done, they think they'll have 110 officers policing their community. And that to me is a real success of the model that we're putting in place. And I think a real success of the municipal leadership. So we'll keep an eye on it. Maybe you and I should talk a little bit more. I suspect you probably would have a few things to say about some of the larger forces. And so we'll continue to have the conversation. But we're really pleased with some of the initiatives that we're seeing on the part of the municipalities right now.
Thanks, Premier. I'm going to, before I get to John here, who wants to ask you a question, I just want to add on to the Grand Prairie thing. Just very simply, is their study showed more officers, better service, better oversight, and then ultimately cheaper. So it's win-win-win. I can tell you Grand Prairie is leading the country right now. When I talk to ministers across the country, everybody is following Alberta, whether it becomes the Alberta Sheriffs or whether it comes to what we're doing at Grand Prairie. So thank you very much. I'm going to have John Carpe here from Calgary Glenmore ask you a question. Thank you.
For those of you who don't know, John is the head of the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, and he's done some really great work on defending our freedoms for many, many years. So thank you for your work.
Thanks for your kind words, Premier. Thanks for your leadership. My question is about free expression and regulatory bodies. It's a problem across Canada, also in Alberta. We've seen how Dr. Jordan Peterson was pursued by his own college, not over any failure in how he treated his clients in a counseling session, but simply over his public speech. In British Columbia, the nurse Amy Ham has been disciplined by her BC College of Nurses and Midwives over stating publicly that there are two genders. And it's a problem in Alberta. We've had the College of Physicians and Surgeons threatening doctors, commencing disciplinary proceedings against doctors simply for participating in scientific debate. We've got the Law Society of Alberta, which has sent threatening letters to lawyers, again, nothing pertaining to their practice, but simply for publicly speaking their political views. And I submit that the role of the regulatory body should be to ensure a code of ethics and proper professional conduct, should not extend to trying to regulate the speech of whether it's teachers, psychologists, doctors, lawyers. And so my question is, what do you have in mind for restoring free speech or increasing the amount of free speech that we have in Alberta vis-a-vis regulatory bodies?
Well, thank you for that question, John. And I'll probably get another lifeline here if Mickey Amory, our Justice Minister, wants to make his way to a microphone. I can start by answering that question, but let me get Mickey to tell you a little bit more about the direction we're going. And John, it's because of a lot of the work that you've done in exposing this and the problems over the years that we knew that we needed to act on it. One of the things I would say is that we've got a couple of really key positions that are going vacant due to retirements. And if there's any doctors in the house, we are looking for a chief medical officer of health and a registrar for the College of Physicians and Surgeons who will know that there is that respect line that we have for a difference of opinion in the medical profession. We used to have a tolerance for a difference of opinion in the medical profession. I don't know how we ended up losing that, but we've got to get it back. So we've got a couple of open competitions happening right now, and I hope we can find the right person. But barring that, we have to put some legislative barriers in place to regulatory colleges that overstep what we've given them the mandate to do. Why do we have these self-regulating professions? Well, we don't want them ripping off clients. We don't want them engaging in bad practice and hurting people. We don't want them committing fraud. These are very legitimate reasons to have professional colleges and oversight bodies. It's not so that one medical professional can tattletale on another medical professional because they didn't like what they put on Twitter, or they didn't like how they talked to somebody, or they didn't like that they expressed a public view. That is not the reason why we have these colleges. It shouldn't be weaponizing one professional against another. And so we've come to the conclusion we probably need to have, I think we're calling it Peterson's Law, around our table. And we're going to see if we can put some barriers around that. Is Mickey still with us, or do I have to explain what Peterson's Law is?
Mickey stepped out, Premier. He'll be back, but he's not available.
Oh, we had to step out. Okay, so here's what we will do. It will be as exactly as I described, is that we will put a few more guardrails around what constitutes a legitimate action for a professional governance body to intervene and give disciplinary action against one of their members. And it's not just law, it's not just medical professions, it's across the board. So do know that we've heard the call loud and clear, and we're going to make sure that we bring forward some robust legislation in the fall.
Premier, over here on this side, we have Mr. Funder, who has a question for you.
Hello, Premier. You've done a wonderful job over the past 2 years since we've elected you.
I've missed you on the air. He used to call me. He used to call me every week or text me.
Yes.
It's nice to see you in person.
So you mentioned. Sorry, my question has to do with the Sovereignty Act. So I had admit that I don't know enough about it, but is the Sovereignty Act enough to overcome the federal overreach on our province, or are we dependent upon Mark Carney stepping aside and allowing us to do what we want to do as a province and become economic superpower?
Well, I can tell you we're going to find out, because the way one of the things I found when I was running for leadership is people said, why can't we have a notwithstanding clause so that we can override bad federal laws that we don't like? That's what people said. Why don't you just use the notwithstanding clause and say you're not going to follow that federal law? And so that's kind of what the Sovereignty Act is. It's when federal governments overreach their area of jurisdiction, invade our jurisdiction. We're going to basically say, notwithstanding what the federal government wants to do, they don't have the legal authority to do that, so we are not going to follow their laws. And so the first invocation of it was with the net zero power regs. We're still trying to negotiate that one, but I can tell you, if they continue to persist in telling us that we cannot bring new natural gas power on stream unless it's fully abated by 2035, on pain of sending our CEOs to jail if they don't reach that target, we are going to have to build those power plants anyway, because we have a safety issue for our people here. We cannot have the power grid fail in minus 30 in the middle of winter or plus 30 in the middle of summer. And it's not ideological. People die. People died in Texas, hundreds of them, when they ran out of power in the middle of winter. People die in the middle of heat waves when they can't cool down. So that is one way that we will enact it. There are a number of other proposals that we're looking at. One of the things that we did as well is we took authority over all the emissions data. So the emissions data from our companies have to be reported to us, and then we will share it with the federal government. We made our federal sites or we made our sites for oil and gas development, we made them critical infrastructure. Federal agents are not allowed to walk on those properties without our permission. When it comes to firearms owners' rights, we said that municipalities and police forces, it is not our priority to go after law-abiding gun owners. Our priority is to go after the bad guys who are smuggling guns across the border or using them to commit crimes. So in some ways, what we've already done is we are exercising our authority in our full range of constitutional jurisdiction. And if the federal government wants to come after us and try to disallow our laws, that will be up to them. They've been playing this game with us for years. They pass laws that are unconstitutional and illegal, and then they make us go for years and years and years to get a court decision on them. Well, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to pass laws, and if they think they're illegal, they can come after us. But we believe that this is the right way for us to make sure that our Constitution is honored. We are equal orders of government. We are not a subordinate level of government to Ottawa. We have powers, they have powers, and they just need to start respecting that the Constitution says what it says. And we're going to do whatever we can to force it. If we have to pass a few more Sovereignty Act motions, a few more notwithstanding clauses, we're going to do that.
All right. I feel very passionately about that one, Premier, so thank you very much. Although the new Environment Minister said she will not be throwing anybody in jail, and I said, your legislation still says that, so I would suggest starting there. But I'm told we have 5 minutes left. So I'll hand it over to Miles next. For those who are still waiting to ask questions, the quicker we ask those questions and the quicker we get them answered, hopefully we can get a
Let's
couple
take
more
everybody who's currently at a mic, and then we'll wrap them up. I think what Rebecca was telling me is shorter answers, not shorter questions.
I'm good at that.
I'll
a
try.
little bit of both.
Calgary Northeast. First off, thanks for appointing him to the cabinet, one of my long-term friends. Great to see you. My question is this. Many of us in this room have built our companies and our lives on north-south partnerships. How are we within an independent, or within a united Canada, going to build an independent economic relationship with our partner to the south, whether that be United States or Mexico?
I can tell you, I know everybody was shocked by the treatment of the new U.S. president of our country, and I was shocked too. I mean, I thought that it was going to be an era of just amazing partnership with the United States, that together we were going to be able to get pipelines built, access to market, and we were just going to rocket ship up together. And I've been a bit taken aback and surprised by the last 6 months myself. That being said, I'm also intergovernmental and international affairs minister. And so my job is to engage in diplomacy and go and talk to people and find out why it is they're treating us this way and what we can do to try to get a breakthrough. And I can tell you, we got that. We've got really good relationships with various secretaries in the US government. We've got great relationships as well with governors, with members of the House of Representatives, with the Senate, who are advocating on our behalf. And part of the case that we made was that America wants energy dominance. You can't get there without Canada. America consumes 19 million barrels of oil a day. They only produce 13 million barrels of oil a day. So they've got to get the amount that they need to fill that gap from somewhere. And some of the other countries in the world that provide our particular brand of heavy oil are Iran and Venezuela. And we are much better partners than those two countries. The other thing that I've said to them is, if they want to continue to produce and export more, we can be the producer that backfills to keep prices low in North America, and then they can use their WTI to export internationally to achieve some of their international goals. It's sort of a second thing that I've said to them. And I've also made the same argument on whether it's electricity or critical minerals or food or fiber. We can provide the materials that help to go to value added, and we buy back more goods from America than anyone else on the planet, which is amazing because we're 1/10 their size and we're their biggest customer. So I would say that all of those arguments have broken through, because I hear them being talked about on American news channels. I hear our advocates down there using those same talking points. I think now that we can have a reset with the new Prime Minister, I hope I'm not sharing any secrets. I don't think Donald Trump liked Justin Trudeau that much. I think that was part of our problem. He seems to like the new guy a little bit better, seems to think he can do a deal with him. So I think we play that out. We let that process go, and then we see what happens with the Canada-US Free Trade Agreement. That being said, I would love to see pipelines built to Port of Prince Rupert. I'd love to see a pipeline built up to Grace Bay. I'd love to see one built to Hudson Bay. I'd love to see one come up from James Bay. I would love to see one built all the way to Quebec so that we can provide them our product. If Canada says no, we are going to have no choice but to continue our relationship with the United States. And that's part of what I've had to say to my colleagues. Why is it easier for me to get pipelines built north-south than it is to the West Coast or the East Coast? And I think that's part of the reason for the recalibration right now, because it's a pretty darn good point. You can't have a policy that you're going to develop everything, but you're going to dig out mining materials, uranium, you're going to develop electricity, you're going to develop every other product but Alberta bitumen. That doesn't make any sense. So I think that there is an opportunity for us to do all three. And when I say all three, number one is let's trade more with each other. And I think that that has been a major breakthrough, and we're all signing MOUs with each other, and it's really constructive and positive. Number two is let's build more linear infrastructure across the country so that we can open up new markets and get to those new markets overseas. And I'll have more to tell you on Sunday or Monday when I find out whether or not we have an agreement with our first ministers. And then the third, of course, is to maintain our historic and important relationship with the United States. And I think that with a little bit of time, we'll get right back to normal. And this really is an opportunity, because I think that we have seen that the US president he's already said he would like a Keystone 2.0 or something like it. I know that there are Canadian pipeline companies that are partnering with American companies on some pretty exciting projects. I'm taking kind of an all of the above approach, and we'll know with the passage of time in the days and weeks which ones are going to go ahead.
All right, Premier, thank you very much. Just behind you here. Let's give her a round of applause. That was an excellent answer. Thank you. Premier, I have Karen Brookman here. She's from Northwest Calgary. She has a question for you.
Good evening, Premier. First of all, I just want to say it is incredible to be in a room with 2,000 people, and somehow this city always manages to cook beef perfectly. So I don't know what that's all about, but it's incredible.
Bravo, amazing.
Bravo.
Thanks to the kitchen staff.
Seriously. So I want to start out by saying thank you for the incredible hard work that you're doing, and I don't say that as lip service. I also think it's incredibly inspiring that you take such an incredible stand for Alberta. I think it's fair to say that everybody in this room wants a strong, free, and prosperous Alberta. I don't think we'd be here if we didn't. Having said that, I think there's some of us in this room, including myself, that feels like this is a moment for Alberta in terms of our leadership and influence on a national level. And that while we always have a good fight with Ottawa and always need to have a good fight with Ottawa, I sometimes feel like we're not doing enough to get a message to Canadians. The Canadians don't get it. They see an angry Alberta. And I think that Alberta should be playing a bigger role in influencing this country, in a united country. And I want to ask you, what do you think the UCP can do to bring the message to Canadians, to make a greater influence to unite this country?
Yeah, it's a great comment, and thank you for that. So as you may know, I came from the mainstream media before getting in. Don't hold that against me. I came from the mainstream media before getting into politics. And one of the things that was always mystifying to me, my husband comes from the mainstream media as well. And what we always discovered is that Canada was a lot more interested in certain stories if the Americans were covering those stories. I don't know why that is, but I think it's, look at our comedians, look at our actors, they make it there, and all of a sudden they're superstars here, right? It's maybe the same kind of thing. And so my strategy of going down and talking on American television was mindful, because I knew what would happen by doing that is that CTV and Global, and yes, even CBC would have no choice but to cover the fact that, oh my goodness, the American media seems to be interested in what the Alberta Premier has to say. And so what has happened out of that is other premiers have done the same thing. I don't think 2.5 years ago, when I became leader, I have a member of my team who is from Ontario, and he said it was sort of amazing. When I came out to Alberta, everyone talks about Ontario and Quebec, but when I lived in Ontario, no one ever talked about Alberta. It really is just I guess we're the quiet, polite neighbor who just quietly goes about, mows the lawn, does a little fix-it, and we don't even want to thank you. We just want to be left alone and to be able to do our thing. And so I think that we've been treated that way for some time. Now people know we're mad, and they're beginning to understand why we're mad. I saw a commentator from the Telegraph, which is a New Brunswick newspaper, and he was defending us. And when he was brought on the air, they said, "Why are you defending Alberta?" I said, "Well, because we supported Energy East back in the day, because Irving Refinery would have benefited from that. But what we didn't realize is just how deep and strong the relationship is with the United States. And that is what we've been able to punch through on, is we have cross-border trade of $188 billion with the United States. That's just Alberta with the States. No kidding, hey? It's remarkable. The next closest country that we trade with is China, and it's $10 billion. The next one closest after that is Japan, and it's $2.7 billion. Like, it just pales in comparison when it comes to the trade relationship. So all of that is getting through. There's a new talking point that I have, and I'm almost reluctant to tell you it because you're going to be so mad, but the new talking point I have when I talk about why it is we're so upset as Albertans that they stood in the way of getting Energy East built, and they didn't do anything to defend us when Keystone got canceled, and they put in a tanker ban and ended the Northern Gateway pipeline. Energy East would have been 1.1 million barrels. Keystone would have been about 900,000. Northern Gateway would have been 600,000 and would have been able to grow. If we had embarked on all of those, we would have 2.5 million more barrels of oil a day that is going to multiple different markets. And if you want to pull out your calculator, you'll be just as mad as I am. At $60 a barrel with current WTI prices, that's $55 billion a year of economic benefit we have lost. And if you look at what the government share of that is, whether it's 20% or 30% all in, that is $15 to $20 billion worth of revenues that governments could have had to build schools and hospitals and roads and infrastructure. So it is not just an idle concern that a project gets canceled here or there. It has a real impact on people's lives. It has a real impact on our businesses who have to go elsewhere, a real impact on people who train for jobs in an industry that can't get them anymore, and a real impact on our ability to support our people. So I'm going to keep on making sure that they understand that. And I might disagree with you a little bit. I think our message is getting through. I think that everyone's talking about Alberta now, and I think we're going to be able to continue to use that discussion to have some momentum to really get a better deal with the rest of the country.
All right. I'm interrupting with a very important announcement that the Oilers won 6-3. Woo-hoo! But I also said 5 minutes about 9 minutes ago, and we have 4 people at the mic. So I'm begging you all to keep it super short. Okay.
So I will say, as you know, Mark Carney is an Oilers fan. So if you can have some common ground to start, that might not have much sway in this city, but it has sway in the rest of the province. So we might have some common ground to start from there. And maybe we'll see. Wouldn't it be nice if all of Canada was cheering for the last Canadian team standing in the Stanley Cup Finals? I think it's going to be amazing.
Hello, we have Wade Collins, who's going to try to make it short.
Premier Smith, you know you're my superhero, and because you're a warrior, thank you very much. I used to be a proud Canadian, now I'm a proud Western Canadian. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that maybe feel the same way I do, that the Canada as we used to know it is gone. It's never coming back. Absolutely not. And because I worked at a federal election and I set up voting stations in seniors' homes, I talked to some old folks who were still lucid that were actually freedom fighters in World War II. And I asked them, and I spoke to some sons of these people who are older now, if this is the Canada that they fought for, and they all said the same thing. Absolutely not. And I've supported you, and I'll continue to support you because I believe in my heart that when push comes to shove, you will do whatever it takes to keep Alberta free. I also believe that freedom is more important than money. And personally, I would say to Mr. Carney, hey, Mark, maybe you didn't hear me. We're leaving. My question is, if we, for reasons that I would never understand, do not happen to become independent, what do you think could be put in place to ensure we could never again be ruled by an authoritarian regime like the Liberals or anyone else for that matter?
Thanks for your question. And I understand your frustration. I really do. One of the things that, yeah, thank you. One of the things I've been looking at is, what does Quebec do? How is it that Quebec has managed to create a bit of a firewall? And one of the things that they have done is they have passed a law saying that international agreements don't apply in Quebec unless they're validated by the Quebec legislature, which is a really novel thing to do. The other thing that they do is they have, I think, something like 34 offices that go around the world. They do all of their own negotiations. That was what I was surprised by when I came in, that they believe it's important for their case to be pressed by their people personally. So that's part of the reason why we've been opening up new offices, and we'll continue to do that. We had great success in Japan and Korea on recent trips. We're going to open up an office in Mumbai in India to expand that out. We're going to open up an office in Abu Dhabi, which I think is going to be a great partnership with some of those jurisdictions. But don't lose hope yet, because one thing that I have found is that the Premier's table has become a very strong table. That when I first came in, everyone was talking about, well, how can we get the government to give us more to spend more money on our area of jurisdiction, healthcare? And over time, the conversation changed to, well, how do we get the federal government to spend more on their areas of jurisdiction? How do we get them to meet our 2% NATO commitment so that we can be a true partner with our allies in global defense? How do we get them to build ports and rail and proper expansion to airports and cargo and transmission lines and pipelines? And what I would tell you is every single premier has a list of projects that the federal government has stood in the way of, and that they are now putting on the table saying, prove it. You want to have a new relationship with us? Prove it. We had a very constructive meeting that came out of my most recent meeting with the Western premiers. And it's really interesting. You've got Wab Kinew and David Eby and their NDP premiers in their provinces. You've got Scott, who's a little bit more like me, as you know. We've got a lot of common cause. And then up north, you had a Liberal premier and two that are elected as independents in the territories. And we came up with a unanimous communique that we need to build economic corridors stretching from Hudson Bay all the way to the northwest coast that includes everything, rail and transmission lines and pipelines, oil and gas pipelines. So if we can get that group of people together to press and agree and work in tandem, I think we can change the country. We've got a little bit more work to do as we press further east, but I'm really encouraged. I'm really encouraged. I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you.
Premier, to your right, we have Councillor Dan McLean.
Thank you, Raja. Premier,
Is that Dan McLean?
It is me.
Council member for Ward 12. Nice to see you here,
Well,
Dan.
You only missed it by one, Ward 13, but I forgive you. My question, well, first off, I really like what you are doing and the entire United Conservative Party are doing for our province. But as a city councillor, of course, I have to look at what is best for Calgarians. There are lots of discussions on Calgary taxpayers, what the province could do more for infrastructure or for public safety, social disorder, some downloading of costs. We've had a lot of discussion. I want to go a different direction. I want to talk about Bill 20, the one that your government introduced to bring municipal parties into at the municipal parties at the municipal level. So to preface this, we know that the NDP and the left usually all have one candidate, whether it's a school board trustee or an MLA or a city council or a mayor choice. They get behind one, and I think the intent was not to vote split. So myself, fellow councilors Andre Chabot, Terry Wong, Sonia Sharp, who's running for mayor, and we've rallied up at a party. So I'm just called Communities First. And I'm just curious as to what your thoughts how you think Bill 20 will play out in this next municipal elections across Edmonton and Calgary.
Well, it's going to be very much up to the parties that put their names forward. We saw the same frustration that we had a lot of money it was dark money. It was in PACs, and it was going to fund certain candidates who would go and talk about how independent they were. And some would say they were small C conservatives, and then they'd get elected and they were anything but. And so slates were happening and big money was supporting it. So we thought, well, why don't we make this transparent? And if people want to get together, run on a slate, have a party name, have different policies that they commit to working together on, then we should enable that. And that's what we did. We've enabled it so you can raise money as a party, you can run together as a party, very similar to what we already see in some other jurisdictions. I think they have that in Toronto, and I think they have it in Vancouver. We're giving it a trial run in Calgary and Edmonton, because those are the two big jurisdictions where there seemed to be an appetite for it. And we'll judge the success of it coming out in the election, which is going to be taking place in a few months' time. But I think if people don't like it, then they'll vote for an independent. If people do like it, then you'll probably see that some of those parties are going to end up getting elected and have a mandate to make some changes. So thanks for taking the initiative. I know that you're one group that has decided to put a party platform together and a slate, and I'm looking forward to seeing how many candidates you run. So good luck to you, Dan.
Thank you. All right, we have two last questions.
Hello, my name is Lucky Elijah, living in Calgary for the last 20 years, originally from Rwanda. Premier Smith, thank you for your leadership. Many individuals with disabilities in our province are currently stuck in hospitals due to lack of appropriate community placements and support services. Does your government have a plan to expand or create more agencies and resources for people with disabilities so they can live with a dignity in the community? Yeah. And also, is there any plan to review and increase funding for individuals under social services whose conditions have changed so they can continue to receive appropriate support in our community?
It's such a great question. Is Big Jason Nixon here? Is he here tonight? Do we know? Oh, darn it. Yeah, you wouldn't miss him if he was here, because he's 7 feet tall. So he is doing an extraordinary job in that portfolio. He's one of our longest serving members of the legislature. He is very skilled. He's been in a lot of different roles, but I decided to put him in assisted living and social services because he cut his teeth in the private sector, working for a nonprofit called the Mustard Seed, which his dad started. And so he really has a big heart for the homeless community, as well as those with disabilities, as well the expanded role of vulnerable seniors. And you've got it exactly right. One of the reasons why residents get stuck when they get into a hospital and their acute condition is remedied is because we have to find a more supportive place for them to be able to live. Someone may not be able to go home because they have additional needs. Someone may not be able to go to a traditional seniors facility because they're not a senior. Someone may have additional disabilities or acute mental health and addiction needs that requires a specialized facility. And so what we're going to do is we realize we're probably about 12,000 beds short by 2030 on being able to cater to that particular community. We've got two ways to go about it. You can just keep on building expensive hospitals and keep having your most expensive bed that is occupied by people who would probably be better served in a more home-like environment, or you can build the right type of facilities. So we're going to be partnering with a number of groups. We've been very successful in the past, partnering with nonprofits, municipalities, private sector, and others to build out those particular care facilities. So that's one thing we're going to do. We also saw that those who were on AISH, we've got a very generous AISH complement compared to other provinces. Other provinces are about $500 per month less than us. We're about $1,901. We also pay for benefits, so that's another $400 per month benefit. But what we were finding is about 25% of people on AISH are working to the maximum level they can before they start getting their wage payments clawed back. And we saw that, we thought, I bet there's a lot of people in this sector who would make more money and would want to work longer if we allowed them to earn more money before we started phasing out their benefits. And so we've created 2 new programs. One is going to be exactly as I described. So people are going to be able to work until up to about 55,000 before it completely phases out. So that gives people more opportunity, and the disabilities community is very excited about that. And then we're going to create a new pharmacare program, because some people can earn a market wage, but they just need support on the healthcare, the benefits. So we're going to create a new program to be able to help with that as well. And we're always open to getting great ideas from community members about how we can do better. But the real success in our approach has been to partner with community groups, because people who have a family member or they have a friend who is vulnerable, they are the best champions and advocates, and they give us such great advice about what we need to do. So lots more to come on that. Thank you.
We saved the best for last. The last question of the night to Arun. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Premier, and thank you for all that you do. I have a 2-part question. If you could wave a magic wand and overcome any barrier, there's nothing in your way, what would be the one thing that you would focus on or do? And the second part to that question is, what do you see as an area that you want to focus on for growth in Alberta? Is that AI, energy, healthcare? What sector do you think has the most potential for growth in the province?
Well,
those are the 2 things.
I build pipelines to Port of Prince Rupert, to the U.S. Gulf Coast, to Churchill, to James Bay, to Grays Bay. We would also then use those dollars to really turn Alberta into the best healthcare environment in the entire country. We know that there's an investment we've got to do in technology. We're already doing that. And we'd build on some of the great partnerships we already have in healthcare. I know that you're from the health profession, and I'm excited to see if we can work together on this. But you'd mentioned about AI, and let me just talk about how this bridges, because this is going to be a long answer, but I'll try to keep it short. One of the things that is important about what the Americans have begun to understand is that cheap electricity fuels the next industrial revolution around AI. We're now going to move into a mode where we're manufacturing intelligence. And there is a country in the world that's already ahead of us in that race, and that's China. And if we don't catch up, I don't know what the world's going to look like if China continues to lead the race in manufacturing intelligence and we continue to fall behind. That's why the energy is connected to what that future economy is going to look like. And it's not just a matter of building the data centers, which is important. We also have an advantage there, by the way, with all of this great natural gas. The colder climate, maybe it may not feel great 6 months out of the year, but it actually keeps the costs lower because they're able to use natural cooling. We've got so many places in the province where we are now hearing dozens of companies wanting to invest here. And that's going to be the first wave. But it's the use case for AI that is going to be extraordinary. And whether it's in healthcare, which is one of the first things that we're doing, we've partnered with Siemens, replacing their equipment that they have in our hospital. They're going to replace it with an AI assist function so that they can take a cancer diagnosis from 2 months down to 2 hours, just by being able to examine and use that first blush with a sophisticated AI equipment to be able to isolate the cases that might be problematic. And then when you look at how countries in the world, like Saudi Aramco and in Saudi Arabia, as well as the UAE, the way they're taking AI and they're applying it to their substantial energy sector. Saudi Aramco did a presentation when I was down in CERAWeek in Houston, saying that they already have 490 use cases for how they use AI applied to the data that they have. And one of them is they use all the data to predict where a well might, or where a pipeline might fail, so that they can go in proactively and figure out how to repair that pipeline before it bursts, which makes me wonder, what are the 489 other use cases? But we need to know what that's going to be. When I went to the UAE, I don't know if anyone has had their genome mapped. This is kind of the new thing, is you kind of map your genome and it tells you the 2 or 3 problem DNA parts of your DNA that are going to be problematic and may result in disease. If you tried to do that now, it'd take about $250,000 and take you over 18 months to do it. I know somebody who did. Their AI can load all of that information and analyze it again within a matter of hours. That would be transformational to how we manage prevention and care if we can get those kinds of things implemented. So it's connected. We want to develop our economy so that we can pay for the services and be the very best at all of it, be the very best at job creation, as well as deliver the very best services in the country. So that's where I want to go if we had a chance, and maybe we'll get a chance to do it. We can only hope. Thanks, Doc. Thanks for being here.
Well, Premier, thank you so much. I certainly know that our team feels this way, but I know all of our members and supporters here tonight feel the same gratitude that we have for the leadership that you are providing at a time as important as this. So thank you very much, Premier, and thank you to all of you for coming out to support us and our Premier this evening.
Good night, everyone.